Hello and welcome. In this session, we will look at how to use tree layouts in Java. We will be looking at how the flow layout is used, how the grid layout is used, and how the border layout is used. We'll also be looking at how to create an array list and how to store instances of an object in array list. All right, so ultimately, we'll be creating an application that has the look and feel as this. So we're going to be creating a sales transaction application, one in which we enter the quantity, the unit price, and we calculate the total. It's going to also allow us to store the data to an array list, to view the data that we have stored. If we click on new, we should be seeing something like this popping up. And if we click on view, we should be seeing this coming up. All right, so these are the three layouts that we're going to be using. We're going to be using the flow layout, the grid layout, and the border layout. Now, the flow layout displays data in a linear manner, one after the other. The grid layout allows you to specify the amount of rows and columns in which your data ought to be displayed. And your border layout comes with 5 main sections, the top being the north, the bottom south, the west, the center, and the east. Let's go to our codes and let's see how we can incorporate this. All right, so far this is what our output looks like. So we're gonna apply the necessary layouts to have it looking as described earlier. Now, in addition, we have added a sales class in addition to what we did in our previous lesson. So we have our sales class with data members, unit price, quantity, total. We have the constructor, non-parameterized constructor, sales, that sets unit price, quantity, and total to 0. We also have a parameterized constructor called sales that accepts parameters for unit price, quantity, and total. And it uses those parameters to set the data members respectively: unit price, quantity, total. We also have three getters to get these private data members. So we have get unit price that returns the unit price, we have get quantity that returns quantity, and get total that returns total. All right, so we're going to be using this class when we are creating the instances of sales, and we're going to be passing our data to the parameter, which will then be used to initialize the object for us. All right, and of course we'll be utilizing the getters to get the data when we are displaying. All right, so let's get into the code and let's see how best to set this up. So we're going to be fixing up the transaction class. All right, now working with the picture that is presented earlier. So here we have our frame, and the main layout here is going to be a border layout. All right, so we're going to be utilizing the border layout, the north, the south, the center, and so on. All right, so here we have a label, which is sales transaction, that is displayed in the north of the border layout. So sales transaction is displayed in the north of the border layout. Um, there is a panel here, so this represents a panel that I call top, and that is displayed in the center. And there is the button panel, which is displayed at the bottom, which is in north, which is the south. Sorry. All right. So let's get those panels and labels in place. So first of all, let's create the heading. So we're gonna create a J label called head. So I'm gonna say J label. I'm just gonna call head equal to new J label. I'll call it, set the text as sales transaction. All right. So that is the heading that we want. Now, in addition to setting the text, I'm going to be setting the alignment of the label. So to set the alignment, I'm just going to say swing constants that center on and that will center the label for me on the screen. All right, so one down. All right, so the next thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding a new button, a button called new. So far we have 3 buttons. We need one more, one called new. So I'm going to just create that button, J button, new. All right. So remember, this is what we're trying to create. All right, so we have the new store view and calculate button. So I've created these buttons. All right. Now the information that we see on the screen there, they are represented in different panels. So this is a label. This part, all of this is on a panel called top. This part is in a panel called button panel. So I'm going to create these panels now. So I have the top panel, I have the button panel. The part here in cyan is also a panel. The cyan is a bluish or greenish color. All of this, that's the entire area. Going around here, all of that is the desk area panel that we created. So we're going to create all of those panels now, and then we put the different components together. So I have so far created the top panel. I'm going to create the desk area panel. The next panel I'm going to create is the button panel. And the panel will help you in organizing the information on your screen. All right, so the more organized your data is, the easier it is for you to actually create your desired output. All right, now in terms of what is on the different panels, so on the top panel, I'm going to be adding these. So I'm going to be adding the labels, the quantity label, the quantity text, the unit price, as it is indicated here. So everything here is going to be on the top panel. So all of this is top panel. So let's get that. So all I'm going to say, the panel is called top. So I'm going to say top dot add. I'm just going to add them to top. So I'm just adding them to the top panel. All right, and another thing that I'm going to be adding to the top panel is I'm going to be adding the button, that is the calculate button. All right, so that takes care for me of what is to be added to the top panel. Now, in addition to all of that, if you notice, the top panel is displayed as a grid. So it's a grid that has, if you can see what I'm talking about here. So we have 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, 4 rows, and 2 columns, 1, 2. So we have 4 rows, 2 columns. So we're going to set the layout for that one. So we're going to say top that set layout. It's going to be a grid layout. All right. New grid layout. Specify the amount of rows and the amount of columns. All right, so that takes care of the top panel for us. Now the next panel that I want us to set up is the bottom panel, which is the panel with the buttons. So this is going to be called the button panel. And I'm also going to set the color of our top panel, although it's at the default color now, so I can leave it. But I'm going to set it for the bottom panel. That is for the button panel. All right, so first of all, let me set the color for the button panel. So button panel, set, so it's to set the background, we're going to say set background. And I'm gonna say for this, I'm gonna say color that yellow. So that will set the background color for me to yellow for the button panel. And now to the button, I'm gonna be adding these buttons. I'm gonna be adding the buttons. So I'm gonna say button panel that add new. So there's a button called new that I'm adding. Say button panel that, so I'm gonna just add these. So I'm gonna add store. So button panel. I'm gonna be adding view. All right. So I've added those buttons to my button panel. And I would have added calculate to the top panel. All right, so these buttons have been added to my button panel. Now, in terms of the layout of the button panel, I just want them to be displayed one beside the other. So that's gonna be flow layout. So I'm just gonna say button panel. By default, it is a flow layout. So it would, so this won't change it much. New flow layout. All right. I will just display the information one beside the other. All right. So we have specified our grid layout. We have specified our grid layout for our top panel, and now we have our button panel. All right. So the next panel that we have is the desk area. So we're gonna set up the desk area. Now the desk area is going to be that main area that we keep changing as we go along. So we're gonna say desk area. That's a panel as well. I'm gonna set the background to cyan. All right. Let me just show you the desk area. So the desk area again is going to be this area, the bluish area, all of this. So this that you see in gray, this is the top panel, and that is added to the desk area. So I'm just going to add that. So to the desk area, I'm going to be adding the top panel. So I'm going to just say desk area. Add top. All right, so that will add it for me. All right. Now, the next thing that we're going to do, just to help you see what we have so far, we're going to be setting the layout of this panel that we have created. That's a layout. So if you notice here, the code says that transaction is a panel, so transaction extends JPanel. So we're going to set the layout for transaction. So we're just going to use a border layout. I'm going to say set layout. New border layout. And then now, we will now be able to add the components to different sections of the border layout. Remember, the border layout has these sections: north, west, center, east, south. All right, so the first thing I'm going to add is a heading. So I want to say add head, and I have to specify where in the border layout to add it. So I'm going to say border layout dot north. So north is up top. So that's where the head is going to go. All right. So if I say add head, border layout. So if I compile this program now, you'll notice. Let's see. Let me just run it with just that, the heading being added. All right, so look guys, so there is it. Just a heading appears. The next thing I'm gonna add is the desk area. All right, so below our head, we're gonna put our desk area, and on the desk area, you're gonna see top as well. So I'm gonna just say add desk area, and I'm gonna put it in the center. So I'm gonna say border layout. So that adds the desk area to the center for us. All right, so that's what we have so far. So we have added the desk area, which is the cyan, and here we have top of this area. So I can actually remove top and put other things there on this here, as you will see later on as we go on. The next thing I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna add the buttons down here, which is the south of the border layout. So I'm gonna add the button panel at the south. So I'm gonna say add button panel border layout south. All right, so that will add the buttons at the bottom of the screen for us. So if we run this, so there is it. So remember we set the background color to yellow and so on. All right, so that is how we go about setting up this basic layout for our program. All right, now to the main matter that some persons were concerned about. All right, so what we're gonna do now is we are going to set up our array list to store the data. So far, if somebody enters some figures, click calculate, it works. But we want to set it up so that whenever store is clicked, it actually stores to an array list. So the first thing we're going to do is to create an array list to store instances of sales. Just to recall, in the sales table, we have unit price, quantity, and total. Whenever an object of sales is created, then the unit price, quantity, and the total will be initialized. We also have getter methods like get unit price, get quantity, and get total that can be used to access the values that we enter when we are creating the instance of the sales object. All right, now, so in our transaction class, what we're going to be doing, we are going to be using an array list to store the sales instances. So we're going to define the array list as public static, because it's one copy for the class, a static array list, and it's going to be storing sales instances. So I'm going to put sales here. I'm going to give it a name called sales transaction. Sales transactions, which is going to be equal to new array list of sales. All right. Now, in order for the array list to work, if you compile it, you're going to get an error. In order for it to work, we have to import Java util. All right, so that allows us to create an array list. Now, so far our array list is empty. So we're going to look now as to how we put stuff into the array list. So to do that, we're going to go down to our listener. And before we even get into the listener, we need to ensure that all the buttons that we have in our program have a listener attached to them. The only one so far that has a listener attached is the calculate. So we're gonna just set the listener for the other buttons. So we calculate, we have store, we have new, and we also have view. So these are the buttons that we have. So we have to add the action listener And the action listener that we have is called calculate listener that we're going to be looking at now. This is the calculate listener, all right? And so this is where the actions will be specified for the different buttons. So far, the only action that has been specified is the calculate. So whenever calculate is pressed, we get the text from the quantity text, convert it by using double dot parse double, convert it to double, and we get the text from unit price, convert it to double by using double dot parse w. Then we work out the total, which is total equal quantity times unit price. And then once that is done, we convert the total to string and set it and set the text of total text. Total text is the text field that is right here. This is total text right here. So you do the calculation, next we change whatever is here to the result of the calculation. All right, so what we're going to do now is store. Now with store, what we want to do, we still want to get the quantity and the unit price and the total from the text fields up there. But then when we get them, we want to create an instance of sales. All right, so we're going to create an object of sales and store that to the array list. All right, and so for that, I'm not going to type over all of this code because it's the same concept. So I'm just going to copy and paste. So here I get the quantity from the text field, the unit price from the text field, total from the text field. But I'm not going to be doing this part because I'm just storing. So to store, all you need to do is to create an instance of sales. So I'm going to say sales, and let me call it sales lowercase equal to new sales. And if you check the sales class, you'd realize that if you're using the parameterized constructor to create a sales object, it takes in a unit price, a quantity, and a total, and then it sets the data member. So it's a set unit price to whatever you enter here, set quantity to whatever you enter here, set total to whatever you enter here. All right? So that's what we're going to be doing. So we are going to be creating an instance of sales by using quantity. So we are passing these as parameters. So it's quantity, unit price, and total. All right. So that will create the instance for us. And then once the instance is created, what we're going to do is we're going to be adding it to our array list. Remember, our array list here is called sales transactions. All right, so to add this instance to the array list, what we're going to say is the name of the array list, sales transactions, that add the instance of sales that we just created. It's going to be adding this, all right? And that pretty much takes care of storing the data in the array list, all right? If I ever run it, you won't actually see the effect until I actually create a view. So allow me to create a view. So we're going to just create a view so you can see the data that is entered. All right, so let me just run it and show you. All right, so I put in some figures, calculate work, I click store, it actually work, but we can't see what is stored because we have not yet programmed the action for view. So let's program the action for view. And for view, what we're going to do is we are going to be taking off what is on the work area. So I take off everything off here. I'm going to display the data there. So I take off the data, take off what is there, and display the data in that area. So let's see how that is done. All right, so I'm going to get in here. And what we're going to do now, as I said earlier, so I'm going to say this area. Say remove everything off the this area panel. So remove all, It's going to take off everything off this here. So I'll say this here, revalidate. Say this here, repaint. All right, so now that I've cleared this here, so if I should just click on view now, let's see, I run this. If I just click view, you notice that this here clears. All right, so that those lines I added earlier, that's what it does. These clear off the panel. Now that I've cleared off the panel, I can now get the information to be outputted on there. I'm going to output the information in what is called a JText here. All right, so I'm going to create a JText here. So I'm going to say JText here. I'll call it output. Right, so I'm going to say JText here output equal to new JText here. Right. Just like that. All right. Now I could jump ahead now and see this area that add output. Right. I can specify how wide and how high I want the text area to be. So let's say I put something like 100 by 100. Let's see how that would look. So if I click view, so there's it. All right. It's a little high. I probably just need to reduce the height of that. All right. So I'm gonna make that a little less, about 50. All right. Good. So there's it. All right. So we're gonna look now as to how we add data to our text here. All right. Let me make it. All right, so we can adjust it as we see fit. All right. So now to add data to our output, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a result text that we're gonna be using to display the heading. So we're gonna say string results. All right. And the result text is going to be showing quantity. And we're going to put a tab between quantity and we're going to put unit price. The tab. It's going to put total. And then I'm going to put a new line. And that's going to take care of the heading for us. Then what we're going to do, we would have used this loop when we're doing array. So we're going to say use a for each loop to pull the different data set from the array list and display it. So we're going to say for sales S. So for each sales S in sales transaction, what we're going to do is we're going to get the data. So we're going to get the information there from the sales objects. And this is where we're going to be using a getter. So we're going to say results. going to be equal to results. So I'm going to keep adding a row, the rows that I pulled from the array list to results. That's what's going to happen. All right, so first thing I add quantity, unit price, total. Then what I'm going to add next is the quantity from the first sales object that is pulled from the sales transaction array list. So that's to get that quantity. I'm going to have to say s dot get quantity, because get quantity is defined in the sales class. All right, and next I'm going to put a tab between /t plus s dot get unit price plus, I'm going to put a tab s dot get total, and since total is the last one, I'm going to put a new line, so that means when the next row is added, it is added to a new line. All right, so that's going to be done repeatedly until everything is printed from the array list. Now when we're finished getting the result, what we're going to do, in order for us to see the results on the output, in the output text here, we're going to say output that set text to results. And that will set the text for us. All right. So let's look at this. All right, so if we put in some values like that, calculate, choose the storage, and then it shows the view. So there we are seeing our information. All right. As you can see, we're seeing the quantity, we're seeing the unit price, we're seeing the total. All right. All right, so I can reduce the size of my text here. About 20 by 20. All right, and you can actually create it without putting anything in there. It will adjust automatically. All right. So now that we have done that, so there is it. So if I put in something else, and view, I think I probably didn't click to save it. Let's click to save it. If you notice now, each time I want to do a new transaction, I have to close the program and reopen it. We don't want that to happen. So we're going to modify the new button so that we can get back this whenever we click on view. So that calculate, choose store, and there is it. If I store it again, say keep adding it, right? So I'm going to fix the new button so that when we click on new, it actually redisplay our top panel. All right, so I'm going to redisplay the top panel. It's very simple. So just like we did for the view, so when you click on new, we want everything to be removed, and we just want to add our top panel back to where it belongs. All right, so remember the top panel is the top panel. That is what consists of the quantity and the calculate button and so forth. Right. Right. So I remember we have a new button. So whenever the new button is clicked, right? So whenever a new button is clicked, that is what we want to happen. We want that this area to be cleared off, and then we want to redisplay the information. So just like we did here, so I'm gonna say if event get source is equal to new. All right, so if the event get source is new, that means if the new button is clicked, what we want to happen is, first of all, we want to clear off what is there, right? So I want to clear off this here. And what I'm gonna do now, just like we did here, we said this here that add output, so we're gonna add back top to this here. So I say this here that add top, and that's it. All right, so that should give us the effect that we were trying to achieve. All right, so here we go. So if I click view, and then I click new, notice it's switching. View, new, all right. So if I put 12 and 4, calculate, store, view, that's it. Go back to the new, so 90 by say 3, calculate, store, view. So notice it's storing all of them. All right, so that's how it should work. If I go to new, now you can always program it. So if I click on new, it also set the text, set these to, as in set these to blank. All right, so you can set the text, so you can erase these if you want. I'll do one of them for you. You can do the rest. I'll make the quantity text blank on Excel stuff. So in transaction, when new is clicked, I could just say quantity text, that's set text, make it empty, that's it. That will make it blank. Once you click on new, and you'll be good to go. All right. So thank you all for watching, and I wish for you a good day. So let's just see this work before we go. So calculate, store, view, and if I click new, you notice that the quantity is not shown, so you can do the others to achieve these. All right. Good. Thank you.